clearance. Item approve. We have item approval, and then the agreement. Register application agreement. This document is signed with invoice. So you submit the document. The escrow agreement is also another requirement Aston is asking. So there are companies also can work for you for the data security, data receipt backup or data be available. So those company are the escrow. So you sign agreement with this company. So if you disappear, so your information can be still available. So that you can correct me if the escrow company. So then I can so our colleagues are ready to help people want to become accredited registrar to put the correct information or to help them if they need to fill the form. So there are questions, background check for the guy, because sometimes our colleagues, sometimes it can be a mistake. So another person who is called, who have your name, it can be a confusion sometimes. So, but if they check, they will see that it's not you. So your application can move. This is the last type, move please, and you'll see on the slide we'll be sharing again. You have the two links. In conclusion, when you become an ICANN accredited registrar, what is very important to note is that you can be able to register or to work with many registries. You can decide to start with 210. Now we have more than 1,000. So this is what I want to share with you to let you know that if you go to the map of the statistics today, we have 11 accredited registrars in Africa, which is a very low number, showing that in the business you need to be more involved. People mention the 10,000 approximately like a big amount, but if you want to go alone, you can treat it as a big amount. But if you are together with other people, I think it's very easy to get this 10, around 8 to 10,000 a year. So briefly, this is what I want to share with you to let you know that we need more accreditation because we are talking. The next panel will be talking about business. So this is just information I want to share with you that you can become a company, can become accredited registrar. So at the country level, if you want to be a registrar, accredited registrar, you will talk to the CCTLD. But if you are an ICANN accredited registrar, if this gives you more credibility, if you go to a CCTLD, they can also easily give you accreditation to register their domain name for them. So thank you very much. So I can take maybe just 1, 2 questions, and I leave the floor for the panel. Thank you very much.
Okay, Alaji Cisse from the Gambia. My question is regard to resellers. Is it going to be like the same process if you want to upgrade from being a reseller to a registrar?
bank will ask many questions. How many domain name types do you think you'll be registered? So these are many questions. So it's for them to find answer to this question. If they have a good plan, I think banks are ready to fund them. So, but also personal, not in the presentation. If you want to start a business, you have to study all these things. Maybe apart registering domain name, you will be doing something apart, not only domain name registration. So it is a global plan, business plan that can. Alex has something to add. So Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to react about that because if you are students who willing to set up to have a startup of this domain, I think the first step is to begin to work with your CCTLD. I'm sure that the CCTLD can offer you some opportunities without a big amount of money to learn about the job, to see about your market, so you will be able after to go at a registrar level, at the item activity registrar level. I think don't start at the level. Start at the local level first. With your know your market first, and after that you can see if your market needs more extension, so you can go at the item registration level. This is my opinion.
So a good advice from Professor Alex. So please.
I think it's becoming very interesting. For me, I think we need to study the models, because it looks like what you're proposing is a model that can work in Africa. And I think one of the things that should come out as a recommendation here is that what model are they proposing? Can we have a hackathon? Can we have something that we can test this model? Or that we think as a proposing business to people, these are things we have tested and see
We'll think about your comment, and again, the objective and purpose of this presentation is to inform you about this opportunity. And then I think we have started a discussion, and it's good maybe in Tanzania, so we can continue this discussion. What you said, this idea, so we see how we can. So you can start small and start with your CCTLD, and then you have experience, and then you can grow up very easily going to. So it's a good idea for riders. So if you have many young people at the country level, CCTLD, they are good. So I think to move to ICANN accredited registrar, it will be easy because they'll have some experience. So I think the idea we can continue discussion. I think we can, Bob, you can call the next panel, you can go and you have them. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. I think Yahweh is overworked today, isn't it? We are sorry for the Kenyan welcome. So I think I'll invite the last session, and I'm sure Barak knows his panelists. Barak is the admin manager for AFTLB, which is the association of CCTLDs in Africa. So this discussion, I think, still fits in the next session that we'll be talking about the DNS business in Africa. And I'm sure Mark will also share some of the issues coming from this particular session on the recent study that they're about to finalize. I'm sure they encountered some of those issues that we were mentioning. But maybe let me also take this opportunity to invite you after this, or after the end of today's sessions, to an ICANN cocktail. Who is listening? I said cocktail. I didn't say where. Okay, so we are hosting a cocktail after the sessions today. It will be on the other side from 6:30, and I want to invite everybody to join us after such a hard day's work. So Barak, you know you are standing between us and the other things. Please make it interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bob. Bonjour à tous. Salam alaikum. Karibuni Nairobi. I think now you are flowing with the Swahili, which is an easy language. So the next panel will tackle a very easy topic, and I expect to get some good participation from the floor as well. As I wait for my panel to settle, we are going to talk about domain names business in Africa. This is an interesting area or a growing area as the internet footprint expands on the continent. The domain name industry is also growing. I was just looking at an article online, and it was titled Uncharted Entrepreneurship in Africa's Domain Name Industry. And I thought it would serve as a good basis or theme for the panel this afternoon. And I'll read a few points that I picked from the article. It says, as Africa continues to come online, it is likely to follow the trends seen in the early 90s in the developed world. So in the early 90s, we saw domain name uptake coming up similar to the way we have real estate, where people buy pieces of land in a cheaply, bid their time, and then resell them at a very good price. I think there are some domains which I don't want to name here, which we know have fetched very good prices internationally. So there's a gentleman quoted in the article called Stephen Gorman, the founder of digital marketing agency Push Digital Media. He says he's finding a lackluster response among local entrepreneurs in the African continent. They don't seem to be excited about the domain name business or the domain name industry. And to quote him, he says, it's frustrating as the relatively nascent market offers opportunities that have long passed the developed world. So Africa has an opportunity to capitalize on the domain name industry in areas that the developed world was not able to do. So Gorman reckons that Africa's domain name business is starting to become lucrative. For example, since 2010, Gorman has been developing fly.co.za. I think you can look at that online, and has netted a tidy profit for fly.co.za and fly.co.ke, the Kenyan version. According to Gorman, the South African industry, where he's based, witnessed six-figure sales in the year 2012, but the public remains largely unaware due to non-disclosure agreements. So with me is an interesting panel. I will call it an eminent panel. They are going to introduce themselves. On my far right, we have Dr. Waudo Siganga. I don't want to steal the thunder from him, but he will introduce himself. I have Maureen Akinyi, the marketing manager of Kenny, the .ke registry. I happen to have benefited from this T-shirt, which he has refused to wear, but I've worn as the chair. And of course, Mark Elkins, whom you all know from POSIX, he'll introduce himself as well. So quickly, let me give my panelists a chance to introduce themselves, and then we will proceed. So I'll start with Dr. Siganga.
Okay, thanks, Barak. As Barak has said, my name is Dr. Waudo Siganga, and I've had affiliation with ICANN for quite a long time, since 2003. Within ICANN, I'm basically with what is known as the business constituency, which is part of the ICANN that brings together business users of the internet, not those who actually have internet investments, but businesses that use the internet. So that's my interaction with ICANN. The business constituency is actually part of the larger, what is known as the commercial stakeholders group, which includes three other SOs, which are the ISPs, and there's also a third one, can't quite remember it at the moment. And then also we are part that commercial stakeholders group is also part of what is known as the GNSO, the Generic Names Support Organization. So that is my interaction with ICANN. That is the business constituency. I've done a few activities within ICANN. Right now, I'm involved with what is known as the CCRT, which is the review team that is looking at the impact of the new GTLDs. And we're just about to finish our work. We did a report that came out in March, and we had a review, we had a public comment period that has just ended, and we are going to refine the report and make it available for the community later in the year. I'm also a member of what is known as a FICTA, which is Africa ICT Alliance, and I'm actually here representing a FICTA, whose chairman is Dr. Lufuye, who's from Nigeria, who's also quite active with ICANN. So within a FICTA, I'm a board director. And then I'm also a director with what is known as the World Information Technology Services Alliance, which brings together ICT associations from around the world, amongst a few other things. If I continue, we'll be here by evening when the cocktail is supposed to be on. So I'd better hand over to.
Thank you, Maureen.
Okay, thank you so much, Barack. Though I think I should have come before you. Mine is a bit short. Yeah, my name is Maureen Akini, and I'm the Sales and Marketing Manager for KENIC. KENIC stands for Kenya Network Information Center, and it's the local registry in Kenya, standing for .ke. So I'm here to represent KENIC to talk about some of the challenges our registry faces in comparison to Africa as a whole. So I'm really pleased to be here.
Thank you, Maureen. And last but not least, Mark.
Thank you, Barack. My name is Mark Elkins. I live in South Africa. My claim to fame would be that I've been a board member of Afrinic for a while, but about 20 years ago, apart from running my own ISP, I was also involved in the co.za domain name system and automated it to great extremes. About a year ago, I took part in a project that was meant to last about 3 months, and we're almost finished now, which was the great domain name system study for Africa. And I'm going to share some of the interim results with you a little later on.
Thank you very much, Mark. So the panel won't take a long time. I think I need to give an outline on how we will conduct our business. So Mark is going to answer the question, what is the status of the domain name industry in Africa? Thereafter, Dr. Waudo will talk about the opportunities. Specifically, we want him to answer the question, what opportunities are we missing as the African continent? Maureen, on the other hand, will talk about the challenges that we are facing as a region, with specific emphasis on the local context and what we can do to resolve the same. Then I will give you an opportunity to also ask questions or make comments, because these questions are all encompassing. And finally, we'll have closing remarks from our panelists. So Mark, on to you. What is the status of the domain name industry in Africa based on the study that you conducted?
Okay, I do have a PDF, but I don't think it's going to show on the slide, is it, on the screen? Not. All right. Sorry about that. So one of so questions that we went through. The preliminary report is available on the internet, on the ICANN website. It's also available from our website that we use, which is dnsafrica.study, which is self-explanatory. You were asked a few moments ago in the previous talk, there was a question of, well, why don't I become a .com registrar or something like that? And so there's a great question, well, how many .coms are actually held by Africans? And this is one of the questions that we've got answered by the study. So some quick facts quickly. There are approximately 3.5 million CCTLDs in Africa. That is around about 1.1 million in South Africa,
And then we've got 4 countries which are using Freenom, who are now using the Freenom system. I don't know if that's going to be worthwhile. I haven't got control over that. I'm going to carry on and just speak, I think, rather than worry too much. So there's of the 3.5, there's 1.1 in South Africa. There's about 1.5 Freenom domains, which leave the rest for the rest of Africa. That Freenom domain has increased by 20% in the last 6 months. That's what a free domain name does to the industry. And we got information from Affiliates, and that gave us 140,000 domain names, for example, .org, and the others that they run. And let's just get rid of the screen. And we, late into the study, got 1 million .com domains coming in. So we believe there are around about 1.4 million domain names which are not African CCTLDs in Africa. We only got just shy of 1 million .coms, and I think that number is out by about 20% looking at my own experiences. So we have a total, therefore, of the best part of just under 5 million domain names in Africa. So if you're looking at starting a business, those are the numbers that you're dealing with. Quickly go to the next part. Okay, we have a section on recommendations. This report was 188 pages, and it's already up to 200 pages. That's since our initial handover of the report. We got to a couple of recommendations, and I'd love to read through a few of these. So firstly and most importantly, there should be a low but not a zero fee for registering a domain. I'm a believer that if something is free, it doesn't have value. Also, if you look at the restrictions that Freenom applies to the domain names that they are providing, they are actually quite severe, and if your domain name is successful, they will simply take it over potentially. So there should be a low but not a zero cost. Whether that it's upsetting my screen. The other big thing that we found is that a lot of websites were very difficult to find where the registry landing page was, and that was reflected by the numbers. So an easy-to-use registration system does make a lot of sense. We also looked at rules which do not, or suggested rules that do not require domain name registrants to have a legal presence in the country. And I think I have a problem with Kenya. Yes. So you don't want to restrict a CCTLD to just your country. Or if you do, you're going to find that the numbers are smaller. Rules which don't require domain names to match the business or personal name. My experience from that is certain CCTLDs, they only want your business name as the domain name. And that to me strikes out any ability to use imagination and so on. The best example of that is South African Breweries, SAB, the brewery company. But they've registered things like they're all the different brands, Castle, Lion, and all the rest of it. If we had said only by the company name, we would have one domain name from them. As it stands, we have about 20 or 30 domain names from them. So it's another reasonable rule. The landing pages I've already mentioned. Automatic procedures for registration and fulfillment. Make it as easy as possible for people, otherwise they're going to get bored and go away. It makes perfect sense. Payment gateways. Although credit card was not on our survey was not the most popular method of payment, if you want the widest population to be able to do something, then certainly a payment gateway that includes credit card, I believe, makes great sense. there was a whole mechanism on whether one should be a 2R system or a 3R system. The R's refer to some of the words that were on the screen previously. We have registry, we have registrar, we have registrant. That's a 3R system. The 3R system seems to be what people grow into after time, and I believe, honestly, the sooner that you can get to 3R, the better the CCTLD will run. I've mentioned running an automated system, which probably means EPP, using EPP. An amazing number of CCTLDs do not provide an active whois system. That needs to be done. Some other bits. If you go and try and register a Namibian domain name, you'll find that there's one price for local people and another price for overseas people. I think that's terribly unfair, and I think that pricing should be, or rather the report suggests that pricing should be kept to a simple pricing model. Obviously, in this new world, we should all be looking at things like DNSSEC, running dual-stacked IPv4 and IPv6 systems, etc., etc. One of the, and that's basically all of the suggestions that we came out, or the bulk of the suggestions. Move over to a different section. One of the suggestions that the study wanted to try and make was the looking at of a DNS observatory in Africa. And the more we look at that internally, and the more we listen to some of the comments and suggestions that were made public, the more this makes sense. The study was extremely difficult / frustrating. Look, we obviously made huge mistakes. We made too many questions in our questionnaire, but it was also very difficult to get people to answer questionnaires and to give us the information. And the study, I'm sure, would have been a lot better. And if anyone is ever to do this study again, which I really do hope, it's going to make a lot of sense if there's a DNS observatory. Well, what is that observatory? That to me would be a collection, essentially a collection machine. And in an ideal situation, that would be a collection machine that people can set up to be a DNS slave to their CCTLD zones. So once set up and running automatically, it would simply copy the zone files over. If it's a secondary, then it can be a proper secondary system, which means then that CCTLD will have a little bit more redundancy when it comes to the number of name servers that they publish their zones from. Taking that to extremes, there's no reason for that DNS environment not to be an Anycast environment. This is not to compete with what Afrinet does, but it's to complement what Afrinet does. There's nothing wrong with more Anycast name servers for your CCTLD. If the information is on there, then information snapshots can be taken. We can look at things like growth. Once every 3 months or once a month, we can see how the domain name system is changing. We don't have that information at the moment. And also, it means that we will be able to analyze the names in the zone. I would love to ask a quick question of Kenya. In co.ke, how many domain names do you have in the zone at the moment? Can you answer that? On?
Sorry for that. Actually, the total number of domains we have right now is 68,000, and the .co.ke, it takes about 80% of that, which is about around 56.
Okay, that's fine. Can you now tell me, of those 56,000 co.ke domains, how many of them have got websites? Because if a domain has a website, they are probably going to renew it. So now you can start looking at estimating who is renewing it versus having no clue.
That is true. That is true. The good thing with Kenya is that 60% of our population has internet connectivity, or is rather aware of the internet and knows how to use it. And based on the small surveys that we do, there's a small percentage of the market who still do not know how to use websites or whether they're beneficial, but there's still a majority of companies who are already aware that they need to go digital. So that's something that's really growing rapidly.
Still my turn. Okay, so to me, this is useful. This is interesting. So to me, an observatory will come up the total number of domains at any one time on different domains within Africa, how many websites there are, where websites are hosted. If you have them hosted locally in your own country, you're going to be improving the ICT environment in your country. If you don't know where they're hosting, well, knowing where they're hosted is certainly the first step in that direction. And they're looking at things like what percentage of the websites have IPv6 addresses and DNSSEC and HTTPS, because those will all be concerns and increasing concerns in the future. So that is why we believe that the observatory does make a lot of sense. And I'm hoping that decisions will be made in the next year or something regarding an observatory system. And I think I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Mark. Quickly, I'll move to Dr. Siganga. What opportunities are we missing as the African continent?
Thank you once again, Barack. I think I'm going to look at this question in the context of the complete gamut of the DNS ecosystem, all the way from the registries down through the registrars and right up down to the users. If you look up at the registries, I think there's some opportunities there that are where Africa is glaringly missing out. And the good example of this is the past round of new GTLDs that we had the other day, and which Yaobi referred to a short while ago in his presentation. If you look at the last round of GTLD applications, the participation of Africa there was very, very small. I think most of the applications, I think we had a couple or a number. 17, some came from South Africa. I think those 17 also include some that we call the dot brands. There were about 10 dot brands from Africa, which eventually dropped out somewhere along the way after signing the registry agreement, after paying $185,000 per GTLD application and signing the registry agreement. They eventually dropped out for some reason or the other. Up to now, it's not very well known what happened. But this is an area where Africa is missing out, because if we have 1,960 applications from all over the world, and we have only 11 from Africa represented there, I think that's an area that Africa is missing out. And those many applications from the other parts of the world, particularly from the Western world, is an indicator that this is an area that is a good investment activity. So it's something that I would recommend to Africa, and we need really to find out reasons. There's a study that was done by someone, I think Andrew Mark, some of you might know him, he's quite active in ICANN, to find out from companies in Africa that kind of correspond with the companies or organizations that applied in the last round of the GTLD process, to find out from them why they did not apply. And some of the reasons that came out were, first of all, some of them, the information did not reach them properly. So the outreach probably from ICANN about the program was not well given out to organizations and companies in Africa that were potential applicants. And then also some other respondents say that they did not have a good business model on which to base decisions on regarding investment in these new GTLDs. So there are a few areas that we need to look at so that we can also be able to improve in case there's another application round or another method of giving out domains in the coming future, that Africa can actively participate in this so that we don't miss out and we don't become dependent on having to apply for domain names using registries that are all based outside the continent. But I think we also laud our colleagues from South Africa for at least giving us a little bit of presence by the number of registries that they signed there, including the geo-registries in Durban, Johannesburg, and Cape Town. That was quite good, and of course the Africa. That was a good lead for us, but I think the rest of Africa, we need to take up the mantle
the next time there's that round. Then when we come to the, okay, before I go to registrars, there's also another investment opportunity that is possible in this ecosystem, and that's what is known as backends. Backends are generally just companies that come up and offer infrastructure to registries. And particularly now when we have so many of these registries coming up in the new GTLD program, they don't want to invest much in backend infrastructure. So they prefer to outsource that level of their business to outside companies. And I'm not sure if we have some back-end operators in Africa. Maybe a South African colleague knows of some in South Africa, but this is an area where our business people, our investors and potential entrepreneurs could look at to be back-end providers for the registries. When we come to the registrars, I think you already talked about this. My last count, I think there are thousands of registrars around the world. I can estimate maybe around 30,000. And then Yogi, I think, mentioned that in Africa we have 11. So you can imagine that big gap. People are investing in to be registrars, around 30,000, and in Africa we only have 11. That is a very, very small number. So this is an area in which maybe probably some education needs to be done, and then also we need to maybe do some surveys to find out why the registrars have not really come on board. Some of the issues could also be to do with the high fees that Yogi talked about, and there could be mitigating methodologies, as he said, like to bring together groups of people who can be able to invest. So registrar business is one big area where Africa could be able to invest. And a lot of registrants and a lot of registrants in Africa right now, they're using registrars who are actually based outside, including myself, sorry to say, because I could not find a local registrar when I wanted to get a certain domain. I have to use, okay, I'm using a reseller, but the reseller is using a registrar who's based outside the continent. So it could be useful if we could study ways and methods to bring all this business to the African continent by having our own registrars. And then below the registrars, as we always said, we have the resellers. I think we have quite a number of resellers in Africa. I think we are fairly well represented there, particularly because of the fact that they can also be accredited by the CCTLD. So like in Kenya, which I can talk of because it's my country, we have quite a number which are registered by KENIC, and they are doing very well, but I think we can always increase the numbers. And I think when we're talking about this business, also we need to pay some attention to the demand side of this whole equation. Because even if you have a lot of registrars, you have a lot of resellers, you have registries, and the public itself is not even aware of this DNS industry. If you walk outside there, you don't have that demand for a domain name because people don't know much about the opportunities of having a domain name. Then it becomes a problem. So I think that's another area also that we need to look at. In terms of registrants, those people who go out to buy the domain names, I think also it's a business opportunity. I think, Barak, you mentioned a case where people have been buying domain names, maybe try to add some value to those domain names and then resell them at a higher cost. There's some people who buy domain names and then also try to get what are known as search engines, really to point at those domain names, and then those domain names gain value, and then you can sell them at a higher price and make business that way. In the legacy GTLDs as well as the new GTLDs, there's also a phenomenon known as packing, where a lot of domain names have been bought, but they are not actually being utilized. The thought is that they're just bought by people who want to resell them later on at a higher price, and this is particularly common in countries like in China. So this is also another area perhaps people in Africa could have a look at. This idea of packing, you buy large quantities of domain names, pack them and try to resell them a little bit later at a higher price. So I think those are the kind of ideas I can think of at the moment, and maybe in case there's some questions, we'll have a look at it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments, Dr. Siganga. Next, we'll hear from Maureen. What challenges are we facing as a region? And in particular, you can give local case studies on the challenges that you are facing as a registry in growing the domain and business in Kenya.
Thank you so much, Barak. Okay, on the challenges, I think one of the biggest challenges we all face as registries in the region would be the case of deletions. That would be high rate of deletions. And just as I spoke earlier, one of the reasons why our end users would delete their domains is number one, they don't know how to use these domains. And the main purpose of getting a domain, you cannot get a domain just on its own, otherwise it's useless. So most do not know that once they get a domain, it's just the first step to go online. But they need to go to the second step. Either they get hosting for emails or they get websites. So because they don't have that information, they buy a domain probably because they saw some awareness campaign and or they had people talking about it, so they go rush, they get a domain, but a year after that, they don't even know it's expired or it's been deleted. And when you actually question them about it, that's when they remember, oh, I have a domain. I don't even know how to use it. Where is it? Some think it's a tangible thing even. So us as a registry, the first mandate we do is to educate the public, just to curb these deletions. The first step is to make them aware, not only that a domain exists, but to teach them the benefits of taking their businesses online or just having an online presence. So once these benefits are known, that's when they're encouraged to take their businesses online. And then another step is also to all, we established as a registry, we established a customer care department. We realized that this is very relevant in that most end users get domains and they forget about them. So we have to make sure we call them and remind them that domains actually expire after a certain time and they need renewal. Most of them don't, they are not aware of this or they forget because a year is such a long time. So we make sure we put facilities of customer care so that any information they need to know about domains is out there. So we've seen in the past few months that this has actually brought positive effects on Kenik as a registry because more and more people are now renewing their domains as a result of establishing a customer care team. Another thing I'll talk about is one of the other challenges we are facing. Not only Kenya, but I'm sure most African countries go through this. There's poor internet connectivity, especially in rural areas. So, because people are not aware of the internet, they don't know how to use it, they don't know how to access it, it becomes really a hindrance to the uptake of domains. Because how do you sell a domain to someone who doesn't even have an internet enabled phone? They don't have access to, let's say, the machinery, computers. They don't have access to cybers in their regions. There's no even internet connectivity in that region. So we have some of these areas which are even within our urban centers. So it's not only the rural areas. But as a registry, this I'll say has been curbed by the Communications Authority, which has projects that ensure that there'll be connectivity, at least in public schools. They're trying to connect about 22,000 public schools in Kenya with the internet by 2017. So us as a registry, what we do, we try and join that bandwagon so that even if schools are being connected, we are there also to tell them, to communicate to them about the need to take their business online and that they need to be on a professional platform, which is a .ke platform. So far, we believe this is going well because even schools, they are our education institutions, but some of them are, let's say, because most of them are the older age group, so they're also not sensitized on the need for internet. but through sensitizing them slowly, they're taking up this issue. So we believe that is really helping us. And as I spoke of lack of awareness. So lack of awareness, we're tackling this as a marketing issue because registries are not known to market the product, the domain. And it is important to take a domain as any other product. A domain may not be a bread, but just the same way a company will advertise or campaign for you to buy a bread. That's the same way you should look at a domain because the end user needs to know that he needs it. So if he doesn't know he needs it, he will not seek after it. So we have, as a registry, we really put in place really strong marketing strategies. We really ensure that we are on the ground from county to county. We really try our best to cover the Kenyan region. So we most of the time we try to go to the rural areas to make sure that they are aware. We do this by going for events, and most of the time we partner with some government bodies or some unions which have the same kind of intentions. Like currently we are partnering with KNCCI. So KNCCI is Kenya National Chamber of Commerce. So what they do actually, they target SMEs. What they do, they educate them on business issues. They give them a lot of education on that. So what we do, we ride on their projects, if I may say. So where they have workshops, we come as a value addition so that if these SMEs are being educated on how to run businesses, they're getting all the insight they need on how to run a business. We also come to them to give them value addition on online presence. So apart from workshops and on-ground activations and attending events, we are also trying our best to be in the media through social media mostly. We try our best to put our efforts on the social media because this way we'll be able to reach the youth, we'll be able to reach a wide audience who's in the social media. So anything else I'll say is about maybe any other costs that are associated with domains because domains cannot exist on their own. So domains need other services or products, as I mentioned earlier, such as emails or websites. So the things that prohibit end users from getting domains is because they feel their cost challenges. So they feel it is not affordable. So us as a registry, we work closely with our registrars to make sure we come up with packages that are affordable, packages that we know the local Kenyan, the normal Kenyan or the streets can actually afford. Because some of these startups, they're really sensitive on their costs. So coming up with lower packages ensures that they'll see when the package is cheap, they'll see the need to get online. But if it's expensive, they just brush it off. Because the first thing a Kenyan will ask you when you present a product to them is, how much does it cost? After that, that's when they'll ask you, oh, what does this product do? So that's how we are tackling it up now. So one thing I wanted to mention was on the internet penetration. I think Ward also spoke about it. So based on some of the findings we got as a registry, we realized that Africa has a population of about 1.2 billion as a whole. But out of this population, you'll feel that only 300 million, about 300 million are internet users. So that's already a problem. So right now, we are going on a fast-paced digital campaign, and yet lack of infrastructure, lack of internet penetration is still a hindrance. As you've seen, there's a really big gap. So the percentage comes of internet users comes to about 9.3% as compared to the rest of the world, which is 90%. So that big gap already sits in place as an opportunity. So we need to work hand in hand with authorities, with the government to ensure that they improve on infrastructure, they improve on internet penetration. So that in turn will increase the uptake of domains. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maureen, and my panelists for very interesting statistics about what is happening in our region. I think now I want to open the floor. I'm sure a number of you are burning to raise a couple of issues. So quickly shoot your hand up and introduce yourself, because after this we have a cocktail and we would like to identify you positively. So I will start with my friend here and then we go to Abibu.
So I'm speaking French. I give you 2 minutes to. Ok. Merci beaucoup et pour cette excellente présentation qui nous clarifie. Moi, j'ai juste une question à poser aux interprètes, aux panélistes. On parle beaucoup de DNS, de l'industrie de DNS, mais il y a comme, puisqu'on est confronté à ce problème, je suis l'épicédie d'Asie du Congo, Brazzaville, et on est souvent confronté au problème que les gens qui demandent des adresses, des URL, en fait, ils sont plus intéressés par stocker leurs données, développer un site internet, et aussi derrière avoir sécuriser leurs données. Et est-ce que, en pensant qu'au DNS, à sa sécurisation, on ne traite pas, on n'est pas, quoi fait ça, on ne gère pas, le problème n'est pas suffisamment, n'est pas complètement traité. Et là, ce que vient de dire le docteur sur les études qu'il réalise, j'ai pas entendu parler d'infrastructure, j'ai pas entendu parler de développement, j'ai pas entendu parler d'hébergement, j'ai pas entendu parler de tous ces problèmes qui sont très liés à la demande des DNS. Qu'est-ce qu'il en est exactement?
Thank you for the question. I think we'll take another question from Abibu.
Well, Abibu Rashid from Totizi, Tanzania. Well, mine is not a question, but rather a contribution based on the experience, especially to what Maureen has presented regarding the management of deletion. Deletion is a problem for most registries, and for as you know, most of African registries are not sustainable. Very few are sustainable, like Kenya. And that's why you have an example of having a customer care staff dealing with the deletions. But I wanted to add to another automatic solution, which of course, even if you are sustainable, you can relieve the workload to the customer care staff. There is an opportunity as well. We normally send email notifications for renewal of domains, but as well, you can develop a short notice which you can send by SMS. So the critical thing is that when registering a domain, you need to make sure that you take the right mobile phone number which is working. And the good thing with the SMS notification, they are instant, not like email. Emails, someone cannot read a mail for a month. There are some people who don't read emails. And also with the emails, you find some other people changing their emails and not bothering to change the contacts within the domain keys. Under those circumstances, I found a number of customers who basically thanked us for SMS notification because they had changed their email addresses and therefore they didn't get notification. So that automatic way of who is using SMS notification, I think it can contribute to the solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Yelvi?
Thank you very much. I think we notice people in Africa are using most of the time free email accounts, Gmail, etc. And we want to promote the necessity of these names. But I think in the report you mentioned that people are not taking or people are not renewing because they don't have website. So, but I think it's also important to see how to promote the use of the domain for email communication. That is very important. You may have people who are not interested in showing a website, but they want to use domain names for emails. So I think it's an area to explore because it's something missing in Africa. So if the registries, the CCTLD, they have option for people to have domain names and they are confident there are security. I think you have also a lot of restriction just for email purposes. People will register for that one too.
Thank you. Any other? Yes, and then we'll have Pierre. We have our colleague here.
Oui, bonjour. Bonjour. Donc, ma question, c'est par rapport à la mise en œuvre de l'IPv6. L'année dernière, lorsqu'on s'est rencontré à Gaborone, on se posait des questions sur... on savait qu'il y avait un intérêt à aller à IPv6, mais beaucoup d'entreprises, beaucoup d'industries, beaucoup d'administrations n'ont pas fait le pas pour des raisons de capacité, de ressources humaines, techniques, de migration, de moyens, de certitude aussi de l'intérêt qu'ils ont à aller à l'IPv6 tout de suite. Ma question, c'est de savoir depuis lors, avec les études qui ont été menées, est-ce qu'il y a eu un engouement? Qu'est-ce que est-ce que ça a eu un impact sur le nom de domaine, le nombre de noms de domaine? Dans votre exposé aussi, vous dites que pratiquement le tiers des noms de domaine se trouve en Afrique du Sud. Hein. C'est 1,1 sur 3,5, c'est quasiment le tiers. Comment se comportent globalement les autres pays? Parce qu'on avait vu aussi il y a un an que les pays, par exemple de l'Afrique du Nord, que c'est des pays qui avaient eu des points d'échange, commençaient vraiment à faire bouger les choses. Mais depuis lors, bon, c'est un an, est-ce que ça a eu une évolution? Je reviens un peu à la remarque du collègue qui a parlé tout à l'heure, parce que le DNS, comme les registrars, tout ça, ça fait partie de l'écosystème de l'Internet. Et en Afrique, le problème principal que nous avons, c'est un problème d'infrastructure. On n'a pas d'électricité, on n'a pas de routes, les autoroutes de l'information. On a beaucoup de briques essentielles qu'il faut construire. On a vu ce matin avec la présentation du gouvernement du Kenya, qu'on prend même des ânes, des éléments pour aller acheminer des équipements dans le monde rural. C'est-à-dire qu'on doit attaquer le problème aussi bien le fond que la forme. Parce qu'on a beau essayer de développer des DNS, tout ce qu'on veut, si on n'a pas la connectivité nécessaire, si on n'a pas la sécurité nécessaire, la sécurité basique filaire, les points d'accès nécessaires, je pense que notre développement sur le continent, sur le plan Internet, ça va être que sur certaines zones où on peut faire du business, mais sur les autres zones, ça va être difficile. Donc, je termine pour poser la question, c'est quand le prochain cycle de DNS, puisqu'on a raté le coach? Et c'est quand même dommage, parce que vu ce que ça impacte sur le plan financier, sur le plan des investissements, et si on a raté un cycle, c'est quand le prochain cycle? Et les conséquences, c'est quoi? Ça veut dire qu'il faudrait aller acheter, il faudrait aller les chercher dans les autres continents. Je pense que c'est quand même dommage, mais on sait le moment quand même avec les efforts qui sont faits par ICANN, ici même, que chacun de nous soit un porteur de voix, parce que moi, j'en connaissais des choses, mais j'ai appris encore beaucoup de choses. Et surtout, ce qu'on ne devrait pas faire, nous qui sommes là et qui sommes responsables demain par rapport à ce qui va se passer d'ici 10 ans, d'ici 15 ans, par rapport à la communauté africaine. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup. Pierre?
Thank you very much. I think 3 years ago when we were starting the Africa strategy, well, we were having something like 6 registrars in Africa. I can accredit the registrars in Africa. And I remember the then CEO was promising you guys that, okay, I would like to have something like 25, I can accredit registrars in Africa. After 2 years now, we are seeing, well, something like 11 of them. Question we are, and also we are seeing that, well, none of them are maybe, low number is making any money. So the question for me then is, are we working to kind of have the 11 one sustainable, or are we still trying to increase the number? You see, that's one of my sort of question. The other one could be maybe for our panelists, what could be the key element that you see as to form part of the business plan for that industry? I mean, if I want to go into that business now, what exactly are those elements I need to bear in mind? I mean, considering the African environment and a lot of the issues that you cited. And the last one is what maybe Mark, I don't know whether you kind of observe this. How many of registrars actually have got an automated system, for instance, for payment? For some of the things people say, if I want to go to whatever, Comod or whatever, if I don't have my business card, I do this in maybe 15 minutes and I have my belongings. In some places, again in Africa today, you still have to wait a whole month. So you have to fill those forms and all those things. So what is the situation today, and is it really promising for the near future? Thanks.
Thank you. I see another round, but maybe allow me to give the panelists a chance to respond. Then I will come back to you because they are becoming many. And before I give them a chance, I'm reminded of a comment a few years ago when I was in high school by my principal that when you see a problem, chances are high you are part of the problem and you are also part of the solution. So I think as we discuss issues affecting the African continent, we must have the appreciation that we are part of the problem because this is our home and we need to be part of the process of finding solutions. So as I leave you to ponder about that comment, I want to give my panelists in no particular order. Probably I'll start with Dr. Waudo to just respond to the questions that have been raised, and then we'll take another round from the floor.
Thank you. Maybe just a couple that maybe I could be able to comment on. The first one is the question about when will be the subsequent, the next round of the DTLDs. I think that was the question. I think from my perspective as a member of the review team, it's not really known yet what's going to happen about the next time that DTLDs are available, whether it will even be in the form of a round. It's not yet known. Because there's still some work going on at the moment. As I said, we had a review team on competition and trust to see what the impact was of the new DTLDs. And there's also another process going on. There's subsequent procedures, PDP, that's going on within the GNSO. That's also looking at what needs to be changed or how things need to be done the next time. So all those processes are going on, and I think we'll have to wait a while to know exactly what format the next availability of GTLDs will be like, whether it will be around or some other method. So it's not known. There was a question about whether we should be concentrating on sustaining the current registrars, who I understand are only 11, or trying to increase the number. It's a good question. Actually, we need to think about it. From my perspective, I think I'll come back to what I threw to the floor the other time, that apart from looking at these things from the supply side, all these people, they are supply people. The registrars, they're supplying something. The registries, they're supplying something, and so on and so forth. You also need to pay good attention to the demand side, because if you don't build the demand side, you not get a good business environment. By demand side, I mean the potential registrants and the general public, they need to have some good idea, good information about what all these things we're talking about are. And this is also one issue that I've always had, which I always contribute within ICANN. I always have a problem with ICANN because ICANN's mandate is very, very limited, just to see that the numbering and the numbering system is working okay and so on, but it doesn't really go deep enough to like marketing what ICANN is doing. So many people don't know what ICANN is doing, and I think maybe this could be something useful. We have a board member here could maybe discuss with his colleagues. The other day I saw ICANN created a job, I think for customer something. But I've always looked forward to the day when ICANN can come up with a job which we can call like somebody will do a marketing element, like a spin doctor, so that the general public can get to know what is this ICANN, what is it doing. Like now we're having a meeting in Nairobi on ICANN, but I don't know how many general people of the general public know that there's such a meeting going on. I don't know whether we have had appearances on the TV stations or on morning programs and so on, or invited some well-known people to come here so that it can be on the news that ICANN is having a meeting and we're discussing this. And what we're discussing, this is what makes it to be important to the person who's walking on the street or to the business owner who would need a domain, so that we actually create that demand from down going up. Otherwise, you can have many registrars and the demand for the domains is not there. I think the last thing I can comment on was the elements to make a business plan. I think one thing which is easy is if we can borrow from successful people, successful companies that have already invested in this area, in domain names, even if they are from Western countries, but there could be some aspects of their business plans or their success stories that local companies can learn from. So that's one example that I would be able to give. There's also somebody who mentioned something about maybe people who demand services from the PNS, which only include, let's say, email. Actually, this is also another area where we need to tackle a challenge to the PNS industry, because we are getting more and more alternative ways for people to have an internet presence without having domain names. One of them, somebody mentioned, you can have email addresses using generic suppliers like Gmail and so on and so forth. And now, a lot of people are getting internet presence from alternative methods like Facebook or other OTP products, where once you are online that way, you don't feel like you need a domain name. And in fact, even companies are beginning to upgrade their presences on things like Facebook and look less and less to people visiting their websites and deal with other methods that are instant communication. Our friend from Tanzania there has just mentioned, when he wants to communicate with with the people who have taken domain names, it is easier for him to use a mobile phone than actually the product that he has sold to them, which is the domain name, which has created an email address. So you will find as time goes by, you find companies and so on, they're communicating with things like WhatsApp and so on, instant messaging, because using the domain name, the technology is also changing. So these are some of the things actually we need to keep in mind when we are thinking of the business possibilities for the DNS. There are some also some challenges like those. Thanks.
Thank you. Maureen?
Great, thank you, Barak. I'll also tackle the question on the key element to form part of a business. And for me, I'll really stress on the marketing because we've already noted that most registries really undermine or don't really take relevance of marketing. And I really believe that if you do not invest your time, if you do not invest your activities on creating awareness, then the domain industry will just remain as good as silence. You know, because if people don't know about it, they don't react to it. So I'll really emphasize that marketing really has to be part of a business plan in the registry industry. And then also it is important to take the domain as a brand, just as you would promote any other brand. So it is really important to create a brand and what kind of elements you want to bring in this brand and communicate it, so that even the local people in the country will want to be associated with that particular brand. Because a brand is the personality of that registry. So it needs to speak for itself. So another element I'll also talk about it is the automated payment system that was also mentioned. This would be a hindrance because I think there's a problem with the payments where people are not able to make easy payments, or it's problematic for them, so they don't go ahead and register domains. So it is important that the system is easy from beginning to end for the end user. So meaning the system has to be user friendly. There has to be a functioning landing page that is also user friendly. So I think these are key components in making a successful brand as a registry. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen, for raising the importance of marketing. I think we all know that if you wink at a lady in the dark, most likely you will not get any results. So marketing is very important, and I think you need to pay attention, the due attention that it needs. So Mark, maybe your take?
Okay, and there were some previous questions as well. I also work for a company called Domain Name Services, which is the back-end provider to the ZACR, which means we actually run the systems for the 3 cities, Africa, which I want to talk about a little later, as well as the ZA domain name system as well. We recently have become the back-end provider for the city of Vienna in Europe, Wien, W-I-E-N. So there are, in fact, some good people in Africa who can run domain name systems. And we're also hoping, I'm also a shareholder, so I like to cash in on this, obviously. So yes, there are providers that are African-based. There's been a question here about domain renewal. Well, one of my other hats is I am a ISP, or I am a registrar. So certainly within South Africa, the way the system works is the registrar manages the client or the registrant. And it's in my interest to get those domain renewals because I get a cut, I get some money for that. And what they've done to perhaps make that slightly easier is, apart from when it's an EPP system, there's a flag we can switch on and off for any particular domain, the auto-renewal flag. And by default, I switch that flag on. And when it comes to the annual renewal, I tell customers we're going to bill them, and then I bill them, and then they pay. So we don't seem, I don't personally see that problem with renewal systems. Also, if you were to have a look at my registrar system, apart from selling a domain, I actually sell a package. They can choose just domain registration, but they can choose to have a domain hosted with email and or with a website. In fact, to really help things and to try and reduce costs, I came up with an entrepreneurial package, which if they type in a few keywords, it automatically generates a website, which is a one-page website, but it's like one of those things that you scroll through. It works fine on cell phones as well as laptops. It allows them to put a location in, their telephone number, and a description of their business. And I think one of the stumbling blocks with people buying domain names is, well, yes, they know about a website, but it's complicated and it's expensive to go out and get someone to write that website for you. Whereas if you do it like this with a simple one-pager, people have therefore more value attached. And I love people that advertise their own domain name, their own company on their business card. I dislike people who have gmail.com on their business card. It's just so wrong in my eyes. There was a question about all the domains are in South Africa. Totally untrue. I did say that there were approximately 5 million domains, both GTLD and CCTLD in Africa. In fact, there's about 25 to 30% of those are in South Africa. And when you start looking at the stats for other things, internet divided amongst the country, amongst the continent, there are approximately 26% of all Afrinet members are in South Africa. So it actually goes along those same sort of numbers. South Africa has been the fortunate place to have that development progress further perhaps than anywhere else. And can I quickly talk about .Africa? Who has heard of .Africa? Does it have relevance in this room? Oh, okay. Well, let me. So we eventually got .Africa delegated, and it was delegated a while ago. And like all other GTLDs, new GTLDs, it goes through a number of phases. So we're in the sunrise phase, which is where when you register a domain, when you do a registration for a domain for a trademark. And so the only real numbers that we've got at the moment are for Sunrise. Now Sunrise has 1 more week to go. I think it's next Friday. This Friday coming is when it ends. So far from yesterday, we have 660 sunrise numbers in the numbers. What is the relevance of that? Well, that's kind of nice and cute, but remember there will always be a bit more growth towards the end. But when we look and compare and talk to other people in this business, only one other GTLD, new GTLD, had more than 660 registrations at the end of Sunrise, and that was for Dot Shop. And I think they had 8 to 900, and they're now sitting on, after 1 year, 100,000. So we believe, therefore, we're going to be hitting approximately 100,000 after 1 year. That's the only information I can give you. We do have this little betting pool at the office to see how many we actually we all guessed, and Neil Dundas seems to be right on the ball at the moment. He's our CEO. But Dot Africa is looking good, is all I can say.
Thank you very much, Mark. I will take a last round of questions. So I have Rapudo, I have Bob, and then we'll come to Cisse. Then I'll come to you. Okay, I see more questions. I have noted. Rapudo, please.
I think quite enough has been said, but I'm from the civil society. And someone like me from the civil society would be interested about the social model. Because what Bill Gates and Zuckerberg said is that when you give, you create business. And for me, it's about how many domain names are we giving out in Africa for some time, so that we say, I'm giving you for 1 year. Then after 1 year, you're paying for it. And as you're doing that, also we have education happening. Then the last issue, if Safaricom is doing something on M-Pesa, where people are saving money, or M-Copper, where you're talking about solar, you're saving money for solar. Can Safaricom work with Safaricom to have M-Domain, where people can be saving money, and after some time you save your money through the mobile application, then you're given a domain name.
Interesting proposal. Bob?
Okay, thank you. And at the risk of delaying every other thing, so I'll make it very brief. I think my question would go to Kenneth, and interesting because they have been running a very aggressive campaign on marketing, really focused on marketing. We would be really interested in knowing. So there are two elements. So there is registrations, and there is really sustaining or maintaining or preventing deletions. Now, what is, in your experience, the most or the reason that most deletions give? If you follow up with somebody and ultimately still the domain is not renewed, what is this common reason that you get from most of them? And what would you suggest, and maybe this could be to the whole panel, are specific areas that would actually need concerted interventions, and not only from individual registries, but even in partnership with other players in the ecosystem? Because for us to really have this industry going, it would be a tragedy if we register and lose on the other side. So we have to work on this deletion. What is the reason for these deletions, the famous ones? And what interventions would you advise in your experience, which could actually also make partnerships to help? Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Alaji?
Okay, my comment goes to issue of awareness creation and of course marketing. Because back home, I am also working on a similar project to promote domain business. We have like a startup incubator. So part of what we are trying to do is to provide mentorship and support startups. So these startups that we give mentorship, we make sure you get a domain name. So how about this goes to schools as well? I think the director of ICT Authority Kenya this morning, he was actually discussing the issue of trying to reach out to schools, primary schools. How about schools as low as primary, junior secondary schools, be given domain names? Because at least it will help them, their administration, at least they would have emails, at least a simple websites. Maybe some of them cannot afford this, but there should be sponsors to help those who want to create domain names or maybe avail domain names to such institutions that don't have the resources, probably the financial resources, to get online. Also, another thing is this goes to even community like community networks who are trying to connect schools. Ensure that each schools that you're trying to connect to give them resources or online digital resources, you make sure they get domain names. Each school on your network that you're connecting, they got domain names. Of course, even real estates, because in my country there are lots of real estate companies now. Imagine. So imagine maybe in a particular region that a particular real estate is serving. Try to avail domain name in that particular region. Maybe even hospitals, health centers. Some of these things would help. At least you get those people you're trying to connect, get them understand the importance of these things and why do they need to get their own domain names, especially a CCTLD domain. Thank you.
Thank you, Alaji. Yes, please introduce yourself.
Moi, c'est Tidjani. Je voudrais juste revenir sur ce qu'a dit Mike tout à l'heure, qu'il est gêné de voir, par exemple, des professionnels avec des mails Gmail, Yahoo et autres. Donc, je voudrais savoir son inquiétude là-bas est sur la sécurité ou bien juste le fait de faire la promotion d'une identité, puisque s'il s'agissait de la sécurité, des données qui seront en tout cas partagées avec ces mails et tout, même si j'ai en tout cas un mail qui est sous, je sais pas, Africa et autres, et qu'est-ce qui me rassure que le serveur de messagerie c'est Africa n'est pas hébergé ailleurs, tout comme également le serveur de Gmail, Yahoo et autres. Puisque donc si l'inquiétude ici est la sécurité, nous ici bien sûr qu'on est en train de faire la promotion de ces identités, mais on n'a pas encore cette possibilité ou capacité d'héberger ces contenus en local ici en Afrique. Donc j'aimerais savoir son inquiétude se trouve où.
Thank you very much. I think we will take the last question there, if you permit me. Are you raising your hand? Okay. I think I'll take that and then the last question so that I can allow you to warm up for the cocktail. So please, Peter.
I wear another hat as the founder of Social Enterprise Society of Kenya, where our key business is about shared value. I think I'm not audible. We in Social Enterprise Society of Kenya, we realize that many businesses are concentrating on depleting the environment, and are using the community. And our key focus is not corporate social responsibility. It's about social impact, people, planet, and profit. Now, from morning I've been listening to the presentations. I'm just wondering, what is the agenda of ICANN, Kenny, in terms of shared value? Whatever you're doing, money you're generating, how are you doing changing the community around you? And I was impressed when Maureen said that you have partnership with Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I'll be very glad to partner with Kenny because in our members, we have more than 5,000 members currently. Some businesses don't have a website, but they've already scaled. So I'll be looking at how we can partner. Maybe you can even mention how can we partner and work with Kenny so that some of our members can get the .co.ke domain. Thank you.
pick up this one. Thank you, Peter, for that question. Last but not least, we'll have karaoke.
Good evening, I'm Kelvin. Now, my question goes to Mark. Personally, I belong to a generation that has been referred to as the .com generation in Kenya. And therefore, that has influenced us to always prefer the .com domain compared to any other domain, and mostly the local domains. So I wanted to know, in your study, might you have had a question that tried to find out the age groups that register these domains more, so that it can inform the marketing departments, like the ones for Maureen, on who to target? Like, personally, I believe that most domain names are being registered by university students. So what are we doing so that they don't go for the maybe .com and maybe prefer the local domains, which make more sense? And that, I think, will improve our domain name business in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelvin. I want to give this opportunity to the panelists once again. I will start with Dr. Waudo. And as they answer, I would also like them to give their final remarks so that we are able to conclude this session.
Okay, I think most of the questions were for my colleagues. I think so I'll just talk maybe two. There was one question about giving schools the domain names so that as part of the awareness program from grassroots growing up. I think that's a good idea. Getting the schools. It's a start. It's facing challenges also, but it's a start. Of course, the challenges I think you know, because if you go to a school, who would be using the website? The people concerned with school are mainly the students and the pupils and the parents. Those are the outside people who would need the information on the website. And then in a country like Kenya, of course, you find that to access the website, you usually require some equipment like a computer and so on. So there will be a challenge there. It is possible to access using a mobile phone. But when you talk about mobile phone, what is happening in the country at the moment, I don't know if they have come across it, is that a lot of schools are actually coming up with their own apps. I don't know whether they have come across this. Every school is coming up with an app. So if you want to find out about the school, well, you just download the app and then it tells you so many things about the school, the timetable for the school, the programs they're having. So that's going to be another way of doing the same thing compared to having a domain name which you can develop to a website and so on. But I agree with you. We need to have that start if we get the registries or the registrars who can agree to give some of these domain names to this kind of organization to prop them up. I remember some years back, we had a company like Microsoft that used to go to the schools and give them some giveaways in terms of the technology, in terms of software and so on. Of course, there was some debate about this because people thought that you get one particular company which is trying to ingrain itself in the environment. But it's looked at another way. I mean, it's useful if actually corporate organizations can go to the grassroots and be able to sow that seed, which can now bring up a new generation of people who are familiar with the technology. So I can say that about that. Then just the last one, although the question I think was meant for Mike. Mike, sorry about that, but I wanted to make just a contribution to this one about why the deletion. I don't know whether it was for Mike or for my colleague from Kenny, about the deletions. My own idea about why deletions occur is that the people who purchase the domain names actually don't develop them. Because if you develop a domain name, it becomes very expensive to lose the domain name. Imagine if you have to change your letterheads, you have to change your contacts, just because your website is now no longer there. So I think if it was a follow-up about development of domain names rather than just selling the domain name. And in that instance, I think I really liked the idea, the model that Mike came up with when he talked of what his company in South Africa does. They don't just sell the domain name, they sell the whole complete package where you get the domain name, you get the hosting, and you get the development of the website, or they give you at least a basic website that you can be able to use. So that's my idea. When the question was asked, why do you think the deletions are there? In my view, it's mainly because the domain names are not developed.
Thank you very much, Maureen.
Yes, I think I'll start with the question about Safaricom with the M domain. Okay, first I want to mention that, okay, Safaricom is a registrar under KENIC. So we really support any projects our registrars come up with, as long as it pushes the .ke domain. So this means if they come up with projects that will increase revenue for us, why not? As long as it makes sense and we know it will make sense also in our revenue. So in terms of the M domain that you suggested, we are definitely open to such projects as long as they focus on pushing the .ke domain. If it's mdomain.ke or something, we are very open to that because at the end of the day, we are about selling the .ke domain. So we have no issues with that. But in terms of saving money, at the end of the day, we have a fixed price across all registrars. So we do not give a few registrars this kind of amount and another one this kind of amount. So whatever our registrars decide, they'll sell their domains at, whether they sell it lower than they bought it for us, we do not restrict them. At the end of the day, we sell a domain at a certain price, and we also issue a recommended retail price for the public. But for that, we leave it open. It's flexible for the registrars. And then I'll answer Bob. I think he's left, but oh, okay. Yeah, he asked a question about marketing purposely towards the domain, the reasons why they're deleted. So, okay, if we go on ground, some of the reasons you'll get from a Kenyan right now on the street, when you ask them why they will not take up a .k or yeah, why they will not take up a .k, most of them will answer that they know the generic TLDs, like the .coms. That's what they know, they've grown up to know, just as Kevin mentioned, we're the .com generation. So that's what they've been raised knowing. So right now, what we can do is to try to sensitize the public on the benefits of having a professional domain name, because just as it has been mentioned about the Gmails and the Yahoos and the .coms, personally, I also don't consider them professional enough. Like if I got an email, just as he mentioned, even a card, and it says .com or Yahoo, you kind of don't take them seriously. So we just have to keep sensitizing the public on the benefits of being on a professional CCTLD domain name. Any other thing I would talk about is maybe I'll answer Kevin's question to Mark. Maybe I'll just tackle the last part of the university students of your perception on they are the ones who keep registering domains. To be honest, as KENIC, we're also targeting students on the .me.ke domain. So we encourage students to maybe set up small templates and have the .ke domain so that they can also publish the professional information. Like we're trying to encourage them to have a digital CV as opposed to a physical CV, which sets them apart from every other Dick, Tom, and Harry. So when they have such a link in their CV and a potential employer sees that link, they'll take them more seriously. So right now we are trying to do a lot of awareness and workshops with universities. We've already linked with a few local university and we're continuing to spread our wings. As long as they're willing, we are always there to sensitize the students, because part of our mandate anyway is to build capacity, is to do capacity building on the community as a whole, not just sell the domains. This goes hand in hand also with Peter Olo's question about how Kenny can get involved with the ISK, and how we're also involved with other partnership projects. Yes, as I mentioned earlier, part of our mandate is to build capacity on Kenyans. We're not just here to sell domains, but we're here to build the community as a whole. That's why we'll ride on projects that sensitize SMEs, that teach them how to set up businesses, because we're trying to enrich the local mwananchi, local Kenyan. Because most Kenyans have they rely on employment, and they do not know how to tap on their potentials. They do not know how to tap on their talents and all that. They have ideas, but they don't know where to start. So that's how companies like KNCCA come into the picture, because they're there to encourage Kenyans that you do not have to rely on getting employment. If there's no employment, you can always start this up. And we have other organizations such as KIE, Kenya Industrial, and I think Kenya Industrial Enterprises, yeah? Yeah, estates, yeah. So KIE, what they do, they also locate such talent, or such where there's idea, where there's ideas, they come and try and invest and nurture that idea. Because at the end of the day, this will make the economy grow as a whole. So Kenny has a lot to do with helping the economy grow as a whole, in terms of capacity, in terms of knowledge, in general, just increasing education. So we're open to work with you, and we really appreciate actually your willingness to work with us. I think we'll stop there.
Thank you. Finally, Mark.
Okay, there was a question on IPv6 that I missed earlier on. My notes say that the IPv6 take-up is extremely low. I presume that means it's less than 1%. On the other hand, the IPv6 take-up on the .org domain is at 3%. But then when hosting an org domain, 15 countries host 100% of their orgs overseas, and another 24 host over 95% of their org domains overseas. So I suspect that the take-up on the IPv6 part of .org is mainly being done overseas rather than locally. In fact, I think DNSSEC is probably going to overtake the take-up of DNSSEC is probably going to overtake the take-up of IPv6 if it hasn't so already, as far as being installed, etc. goes. Kenya, 70,000 GTLDs in Kenya. How many did you have in .ke? How many domains in KE then? 6?
Yeah, we have 68,000 total.
Okay, so there's more .coms and .orgs in Kenya than there are .kes. It's terrible.
Yeah, that's noted. That's why we're trying to change the perception.
Okay, so that's the figures that I've got. In South Africa, the ZACR doesn't look after all domains as they do in Kenya, basically. It's just the way we grew up, I would presume is the best answer to that. So I know that school.za, ac.za for universities, edu.za for tertiary educational establishments, they're all free. They're all very low numbers because there's not that many things happening, but they are free. nom.za is also free. And that's run by another individual. I think he's in the UK at the moment. So you can get a free nom.za. The problem is, why would KE be interested in doing something for nothing? They're a business, I suspect. So it is a difficult thing, but you can get free domains certainly on the internet. Someone was talking about the difference between using Gmail versus running their own mail system through their own domain. What I can say about that is what I try and preach what I practice. So there are 3 points in a mail system where security could be an issue. One is when you receive mail, you type in your username and your password, and that goes as part of the protocol so that you can fetch your mail, whether it's IMAP or POP3 protocol being used. You can apply SSL to that, but most people don't. By switching on the SSL, and if the provider supports it, it means that your username, the password, and the contents of your email coming from the ISP to your PC or your device is encrypted. The opposite of this, corresponding opposite to this, is when you send mail, there's a process called submission. A lot of people still use port 25 clear text to send mail to their ISP. I use the submission protocol, or I get my customers to use the submission protocol in port 587. It requires a username, password, and it runs over TLS, which means no one can see the username and password and no one can see the contents of the email. So that's fine, that's between the ISP and the client. Totally secure Gmail does exactly the same. When looking at between different mail suppliers, in other words, using the SMTP protocol to go from one ISP to another ISP between two clients, I also play with Dane. Dane is something new. Basically, mail at the moment, I forget the proper terminology, but it tries to use encryption to go between SMTP clients. That doesn't, if the receiving side says I can't do that, everything drops down to clear text. If you start using things like Dane, which relies on DNSSEC, then it's possible to put a certificate into your DNS or an indication into your DNS that states, when you talk to my mail server, expect this certificate. That means that if someone talks to my mail server and it doesn't get that certificate, it should back off and go somewhere else, because my mail machine should provide that security certificate, and then it's over TLS again, etc. So that's something that everyone, including Gmail, is playing with at the moment, getting things going. Therefore, there should be no difference between a customer using Gmail and a customer using the services that I supply. He can come in with a web interface to have a look at his mail. Obviously, that's SSL secure, or he can use his POP IMAP / submission services to send and receive mail. And if you've got that, there's no difference between you as a private individual with your own private email getting those services versus doing it using Gmail. So there's no excuse. There should be no technical excuse for a person to say Gmail or Yahoo or whatever it is better than your mail at your domain, which is so much cooler, so much better.
Thank you very much, Mark. In summary, and before we thank our panelists for the good job they've done, I think we've seen that there is need for an observatory to monitor the domain name trends in Africa. We've also heard of the need for local hosting to spur growth of the local domain name industry. We've heard from the floor that there is need for the African continent to participate actively in the next GTLE round if it opens. Actually, we've heard that from Dr. Waudo. We've also heard that there is need for investment in provision of back-end services to support the domain name industry. We've also heard that we need to grow the number of registrars in Africa, and that there is need for education and awareness. There is need to find out what is stifling the industry. We've also heard that there is need to encourage Africans to use local registrars. We've heard that a large number of our people are using registrars outside the continent. So it's good to encourage citizens to buy products from local registrars. We also need to study ways of bringing, encouraging growth of the number of registrars in Africa. We've also heard that there's need to pay attention to the demand side of the domain name business. Some of the notable challenges that have been highlighted include deletions. There's need to educate registrants, that is, do consumer education. There's need for consumer awareness, and there's also need to fix the infrastructure challenges that we are facing as a continent. So those are some of the points that I have picked from the conversation that we've had. And at this time, I want to just request you to give a round of applause to the panelists as we release them. Thank you very much. And I'll hand the meeting back to Bob.
Thank you very much, Bharat. I think that was very incisive. Barak deserves another round of applause. So I will not take any more of your time. I am sure you are now feeling exactly like this. So I just want Pierre to say a vote of thanks for having kept you here the whole day. Please note, it was not us, it was him. So, Pierre, would you please come and just apologize for keeping us here the whole day? Thank you.
Thank you, but I think the reward is going to be a couple of years, so that'll be fine. No, thank you very much for this, and I think that was quite interesting today. Bit of exercise here for 1 second or 2 seconds. If you were to retain a few keywords from today, which one would you suggest to us? Sorry? Awareness, okay, yes. What else? What are the key words, things that you are going to now take away from here? Sorry? Participation, definitely, yes. What else? Sorry? Partnership, yeah. Engagement, engagement, business. Definitely, if it's you talking about business. What else? CCTLDs. Yes, they should do more than what they are doing now. Okay? Sorry. Huh? How about technology? Nothing? Eh? Litige. Okay. It's dispute resolution. Huh? Oh, yeah, I was expecting fellowship, so it didn't come out. Okay. No, thank you very much. I think, yeah, these are quite, it covers anyway what we've been talking about. Yes, engagement is deep, No, I just wanted to say that we also going to have an opportunity to kind of talk about ICANN during the Afrinic, policy session, and it is going to be next Friday for those who are still maybe one or two things quickly. As we said, we have a kind of, I would say, contract with Africa, which is, we do have our Africa strategy. We are trying to push some of the projects we may be having. You spoke about partnership, but you know that we've already started something that we call, internship. Internship, whereby we actually facilitate, some of the travel for the registries from Africa to go outside. Some of them went to Singapore, some of them went to Canada, and we also preparing some of them to go to Europe, and also across within Africa. So our plan is to be kind of facilitating this sort of relationship between different registries in Africa. I think the second thing is also about we need the community, as we said. I think ICANN is just here to support. The community helped design this Africa strategy, it was 2 years ago. And as we said today, as we've seen, ICANN is being transformed. We're now talking about, the engaged or whatever, the empowered community. It's quite important, it's important for us because this also means that the engagement, the type of engagement we really want, is the one that makes you really comfortable within ICANN, and also make you really participate in terms of, like, keep on saying this, in terms of your presence, but also in terms of real contribution to policy development at ICANN. I mean, it's key. I know working groups takes time, but they will tell you, we do have board members there, we have our colleague here, they know how many sort of conference calls they are going through. But it's important if you really want to make something collectively. So make sure that you are part of this from now on. I think apart from that, I would like to invite you to ICANN 59. It's going to be in Joburg. We had a very nice meeting in Marrakesh. You were all there. It was a wonderful meeting. The one in South Africa,
South Africa is a policy forum, but still it's quite important that we be there. So, well, we'll be welcoming you. And okay, the next session is going to be the year session. So I would like to stop here. Thank you very much again. And where are you going now for this cocktail? So thanks and cheers, and then we continue the networking.
Thank you very much. So our cocktail is on the other side. I think there's confusion. The whole thing is Bournemouth. One happens to be in, and one happens to be Bournemouth. It's not out, it's just Bournemouth. So it's at the Bournemouth, but not the in part of it, the Bournemouth part of it. So across the other side, on the open area, in 20 minutes, I think we start over there. So you are all welcome, and yes, and our IDN workshop is still happening in the next room tomorrow. So as you participate on the other side, please ensure you can wake up tomorrow.
We have on the screen, please, the email address. When you, please, for these two workshops, today and tomorrow, we sent a link to African mailing list to register. For those who don't have this link to register, please send an email with your contact to this address. And then, because it's a system we can use to reach out to you later. So please register for tomorrow if you are attending. Even today, who are our colleagues who are in the room today who didn't register, go and register or send us an email so that we can send you a link to register. But please, is it possible to know people have it registered for tomorrow, or people are planning to be here tomorrow for organizational purpose? Tomorrow is from the full day from 8:30. The morning is the presentation, but in the afternoon is the practical sessions, IDN things. So if you can just raise your hand, people are planning to be here tomorrow. So, oh, that's great. So it's a workshop tomorrow. Yeah. Tomorrow we start at 8:30. So the opening is from 8:30. We register from 8:30. So we'll start really at from 9. So the room is on the, if someone has access to the program, the room is I think the next one. Oh, the next one. The next one. Okay. Okay, thank you.